And we're back with another The Work Week After Hours. Steve, this is going to be a good one. This
I know.
is
I'm ready.
ironically, we like it ties into some real world stuff we've got going on and some past experience I've had. So I guess we'll get to the topic. Do you want to kind of share what you've volleyed this topic over to me, and it's relevant for a lot of different ways.
Yeah, Shane, and to our audience, we don't prepare much for these episodes. We want it to be spontaneous, and we want to sort of take our first reaction, just like if we were sitting down with you at a cafe, just having a conversation, or at a bar. And there's no loss of topics for this week. I mean, we could talk about Bill and Melinda Gates and how every philanthropist in the world just got nervous because they don't know what's going to happen with those billions of dollars. But the one that jumped out at me, Shane, is this whole conversation around a college degree. And the latest take, and we can go a couple of different directions on this one, but the latest article that just came out was increasingly, as organizations try to untangle creating a more diverse workforce, some organizations believe that, maybe we are unconsciously eliminating access to talent, particularly diverse talent, minority talent, because we've got this artificial threshold of you need a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so to this story that just came out this week in the Wall Street Journal, there have been stories around Google dropped their requirement. Mm-hmm. IBM has dropped their requirement. And some other companies, I don't know how much is rumor, how much is fact, honestly, but this seems to be an increasing trend over the last, let's say, 2 years. Some might say it's driven by scarcity of talent, so people need to be a little more creative. Some might say it's driven by enlightenment, people being, hey, these people are really great. I've got a couple of stories to share about people I've worked for in my career who never spent a minute in college. My grandmother never spent a minute in college, and she would kick anyone's butt at Trivia Pursuit in the world. But I wanted to start off with that and sort of get your initial take on it, and then let's just go wherever we go with this one. You saw the article I shot over to you, right?
Yeah, and I've actually seen some other ones, and I meant to send a tweet that Elon Musk sent out March 31st, where he shared something. So I obviously have a very, very strong opinion on this, being someone who barely graduated high school, who has no college degree, and who has worked themselves into traveling the world and giving talks and partner with national governments and all these different things. So
No. Don't stop there, Shane. I want them to hear Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yeah. So I got emerging entrepreneur for 2018, the Kentucky Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame, and a bunch of other things. I don't brag on myself. I probably should, I guess, a little bit more. But so I have a very strong opinion about this. Right. So what I want to do first, because you mentioned a couple companies that said they weren't. Here is an actual tweet out from the owner of, I would say, one of the hottest top 10 countries in America, right? Tesla, okay. Right? Super hot company, right? So this the Austin Tesla Club, so the Tesla owners of Austin posted this. It said, high school grads, you do not have to have a college degree to work for Tesla. You can work for Tesla straight out of high school. Chris Riley of recruiting of Tesla explains. And then there's an excerpt. It says, the company has established relationships with Austin Community College, Houston Tilliston University, and University of Texas and Del Valle Independent School District. Riley said, the car manufacturer is well known for not requiring college degrees for some of its jobs. But Riley said part of the work they're doing with the local colleges is thinking about recruiting students who can graduate high school and start a career at Tesla while continuing their education. Getting to build programs with the educational institutions with the Texas Workforce Commission has just been so, and he kind of goes on. And then Musk tweeted this out with the caption, over 10,000 people are needed for Giga Texas just through 2022. 5 minutes from the airport, 15 minutes from downtown, right on the Colorado River. So he's echoing this and saying, just apply. People, right. Just apply for the job, right? Mm-hmm. 10,000 people in the next 18 months, right? That's a large hire, right? That's a very, very large hire. So that's a very technical company. It is a very science-based company.
Yep.
But and this is what I believe about Tesla. I believe they can make this statement because they know themselves so well as a company. They know how well they can teach people how to do the jobs they need. And you don't need a bunch of ancillary 9 years of sitting in a classroom listening to a bunch of people tell you stuff that's outdated. And I mean, I think highly of universities right now. Right? I do think highly of universities. I just don't think it's for everybody. And, so that process of, do you really need, if do I need a college degree for your company to teach me how to do your job?
Right.
And that's the thing.
Well, listen, let's pause here for a second. I don't think what these CEOs or what that tweet you just talked about or what the city of Austin's doing, they're not saying education's not important.
Correct.
They're saying a college degree isn't important. I don't think any company in the world right now or any school is going to tell you the need for education is diminishing. It's not. But where that education's happening and what that education is, I think is dramatically changing. And you just brought up a huge story for me, which is Google's creating content so that you can be vital for tomorrow that's not requiring you to go to college. And that's what Tesla's basically saying there. It's like, hey, we know what we need. We know what you need. And we're going to have to not just build a business. We're going to have to be a talent development source so that you choose us, so that we can access more talent, even if it doesn't go to college. Now, that's a part of the story, which I don't think people are picking up on. Like, oh, college student loan debt, that's a big problem. That's not what the big story is here, I think.
So this is the reverse of that. This goes back to 2 episodes ago for us. Right. This is, so we know, okay, so you looked at the numbers. We actually just did a webinar with a bunch of career counselors, which is really, really cool. And we talked about a lot of this stuff, right? So think about this. Instead of going to a university right now to learn robotics or electrical engineering or manufacturing engineering, right? And getting, let's say that degree at a really good school is probably going to cost you $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 in debt for the average student, right?
Right.
So you can go there, spend 4 years of your life and go into debt, or you can go here because you're not going to probably work at Tesla but 4 or 5 years anyway. Go there. They're probably paying really good money. I'd say you probably start out 60, 70 grand a year, right? At 19, 20, 21 years old. Wow. You're learning a job, better prepared for when you're 26, 27, because when you go to apply for that next job, that saying that you did this and you had this responsibility and you learned this skill and you did it at this level at Tesla is going to carry 1,000 times more weight than me saying that I went to Western Kentucky University and I got an engineering degree and now I'm ready to get some experience.
That's right.
And so that's huge. That's huge. So now I've actually made money. I'm not in debt. I've learned a skill and I've set my career on a path that it needs to be on. And
that's right.
I, like you said, Google is building their own educational infrastructure. And I think that's huge. I think it's huge.
It's not, and this isn't necessarily new. I was at Cisco 98 through 2000 and up to 2004, about 6 years. And Cisco did something really cool. They built, and this was their philanthropic focus. It's called Cisco Network Academies. They would go into low-income areas of the world. They would say, hey, we will go put in a school teaching kids how to service our networks. So they're building a whole army of network technicians at no cost to the students, contributing, giving people viable access to income, stable income jobs, which are going to be needed for a long time, and giving people that little extra start, not feeling inhibited by, oh, I got to go to college, Now, listen, I went to college. I wasn't sure why I was going there because in my family, it's kind of what you did. And I went into college and I graduated without a clue of what I was going to do, but I wasn't worried about it. And there's so much of that experience that was non-academic that I would not trade for anything. The friendships, the sports, the cultural experiences. That was an incredible honor I got because my grandmother could afford to send me there. My dad's a minister. My mom ran daycare centers. Without that, I don't think I was smart enough to get a scholarship. So I graduate with no clue, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. However, I also think that there's many other ways, having recruited thousands of people, just that you've recruited hundreds of people, and you've been with many students early on their career journey, right? What I will tell the audience here, and we saw parents behaving badly last year. Some of them have done jail time and had a lot of public shaming for photoshopping their kids to get them into these quote unquote higher rung schools. But having recruited thousands of people, I will tell you, grit, hunger, desire, so much more valuable to me than the logo of where you went to school. Now, does it help you get in a first job? In some places, yes. Increasingly, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
And after you get that first job, like you just said, you finish up 5 years at Tesla, you have got a platform below you that is like going to set you up for so much more success, right?
Yeah. And this where it goes back to the original part of the show is, are those companies ahead of the curve, or is that the new norm? Right. And I think middle America is still, so I'll share a personal story of mine. I know you off air, we talked about me sharing the story. So I'm going to share with you a personal story of mine. And I stated it in the start of this, like some of the things that I've done. I built a really cool, successful startup that spanned 53 different countries around the world and partnered with, multiple different international governments and did some really, really cool things. I also have given talks and that kind of thing. And I got asked to come speak to the group is called SHRM. It's actually not the name of the group. That's how it's abbreviated. SHRM. It's human resources and human resource professionals. It's where they get continuing education and these different things. So I got asked, hey, will you come and talk to this group? Now I'm way ahead.
Because you're a decorated entrepreneur. You've made all these big achievements. So come talk to us. Yeah.
Yes.
Because we want to hear from the business leader.
Correct. But I'm also very more. I'm much more. I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. I'm in Kentucky. I'm in the Bible Belt. I'm way more progressive than most people. When you see me, typically I am in some jeans or some chinos and a hoodie and some Jordans. That's how I do business. That's my uniform. That's my world. Right. So, and that's kind of, I say that because I do other things outside the box. Right. So I go and I speak, right. Obviously I get introduced, they tell them all these different things and some amazing folks in there, a majority women, and they're all talking. Well, I knew I was going to this thing for a couple weeks. So I went online and I applied for different jobs at all the ones that I knew were going to be there. Like I kind of applied for the jobs. At night, I'd just go in and just randomly apply for a couple jobs. So
I love this story.
But again, I like to interact and I like to prove real world points, right? When I give a talk, I hate giving a talk just on a blind subject. I want interaction. So for the first, it's like an hour and 30-minute talk. For the first 30 minutes, I talked through some things. Then, of course, they're like, oh my gosh, like this is so amazing. Of course, I'm showing slides of me traveling around the world and sitting and having dinner at Yao Ming's private restaurant, eating with the Minister of Education in Shanghai, and all these different things. They're like, oh, this is amazing. I can't believe you're from Kentucky. You're doing all this stuff. I mean, I'd love to go do that. I'd love to go do this. Just praising me. So then we do some question and answer, and they ask some questions, and I give some stuff. And at the very end, I left some few. I was like, oh, hey, by the way, before we wrap up, can I ask how come none of you have emailed me or called me back about a job? Of course, they're all kind of looking around at each other and they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, none of you have called. Nobody's called me. And they were like, I was like, yeah. So I went and I applied for some different jobs. I said, now, to be fair, I knew I probably wasn't going to get a call back because most of the jobs that I was applying for stated that you had to have a college degree. I don't have a college degree. And all of a sudden you could, I wish I had a camera like facing them in that moment. So you could have seen their face like, oh shit. Like, I see what's happening here right now because, I have, it's like, I have no way to counter
Right.
this. Like
I
there's,
just got checkmate and I see it coming and there's nothing I
yeah,
could do about it.
yeah. So they were like, and I said, see, so here's actually the root. Okay, and my whole talk kind of led to this about doing things outside of the box, right?
Mhm.
It started out what I did was talking about making French toast, right? You only have to make basic French toast. You need bread, you need eggs, and you need milk, right? You mix
Mhm.
it all, or you need bread, you need eggs, and you need syrup. Now,
Right.
you can add butter, you can do these different things, but to make them, you have to have these basics. But most
Mhm.
people don't enjoy just plain French toast. They prefer, like, really nice, put a little vanilla in there, put
Powdered
some,
sugar.
yeah,
Mhm.
powdered sugar, yeah, butter. I need a lot of
Mhm.
butter, like all that
Mhm.
stuff, right? So that was kind of part of my talk. We went through, and I said, I said, she was, and one lady raised her hand and she was like, yeah, but you don't, but we wouldn't have called you because you don't meeting the requirements. I was like, now wait a second. I said, not 5 minutes ago, we all talked, and you guys, unprovoked, mentioned things about how awesome it would be to work for someone like me, who saw things the way that I saw them, who communicated the way. You applauded my accomplishments and how rare they are and how hard it would be to accomplish these things. I'm qualified to come and be the CEO or the owner of a lot of your businesses, but yet you won't even look at me because of your old standard ways of qualifying someone. You won't even get a chance to sit down and talk to me.
Right.
And it was like air let out of a balloon. They were like, oh shit. And I don't know how many of them have changed their thing, but they were like, you are 100% correct. They were
Yeah.
like, I'm going back and saying something to my CEO today. He's like, I've never looked at it that way. While I just thought, I said, yeah, the diploma or a college degree is a sacred cow that,
Right.
if you're missing people because of they don't have a piece of paper, I said, what if somebody's good enough and they couldn't afford to go? So
Mhm.
should we not give those people the same access to opportunities if they're good enough because they couldn't afford something?
Yeah. And I think, Shane, it's a real shame that I don't think a lot of companies know why that requirement is there. It's just there because it's been there. Right? Like I don't think they've really thought we have a requirement that you have to have a college degree because we believe that our talent pool is going to be more thoughtful, more creative, more productive because they have been to school. Like I don't even think most companies that have that requirement in the job descriptions have really thought it through. And if they do, they're going to talk themselves out of it because it doesn't make any sense. And I'll give you another great story. It's in my upcoming book. That's a story
Pre-
about
yeah,
um,
pre-orders are coming up soon. So for those
pre-orders.
of you
Right,
that are
right,
interested,
right.
they're coming up.
A
They're coming up here in a
couple
couple weeks
episodes
when
I'll
you
be
hear
able
this.
to.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll have
yeah.
our coming out party. But listen, I was hired by this woman at Cisco, 1998. Her name's Mimi Jagoo. She was a secretary from Apple Computer for most of her career and talked her way into being an HR leader for a startup company that Cisco acquired. During the integration process, she rocked their world, and they're like, "Geez, this secretary is telling us, or this HR leader from some startup that we never heard of, that we just paid millions of dollars for, knows how to do this better." So she said, I want to integrate all your future companies. You don't know what you're doing." So they said, okay, we'll let you take that out. I was the first person she hired. And I didn't know she didn't have a college degree. It didn't matter to me, but she saw value in me and she hired me. And I never had done an M&A job in my life. And so going through the interview process and right before the job offer, I'm going, hey, I'm really excited you're going to make me an offer, but like, I've never done this work before. She said, so what? You have all the attributes I need. I go, what do you mean? She goes, you're a bit of a rebel. You like a little bit of chaos. You're a calming influence. That's what I need here. And so roll the tape forward. She had no college degree, didn't spend a day in community college, but she had a PhD in understanding people, like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
And she cared about me a lot. And she spent some time getting to know, what do I want? What am I good at? And she formed this job around my best skills. And it was phenomenal. And people never saw that. I don't think appreciated that what she saw was real. And she gave me two big lessons. One is hire people better than you. And because why? Because everyone she worked with in her mind was like better than her, and she's fine with it because she's going to get better. And I thought, why would I do that? Because then I'm going to lose some of the spotlight. And it's a big mature moment for me. It's like, and as soon as I did, my job got better because I had better people around me. But that was a big leap in leadership maturity. And this woman never went to college. It was some of the best advice I'd ever had.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's the
so,
thing.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, anyone who is listening to this right now, you need to forward this podcast to someone you know in your family or your network who's got someone who hasn't been to college and is feeling like, oh, woe is me, or is a parent of someone who's not going to go to college, and they're feeling like there's a second, it's a second class life experience in front of them. Not true. Yeah. Not true. And increasingly, I think organizations are going to have to carry this burden more than they have, which is we're going to need to educate our people, because traditional education, I think, is under attack. We're seeing more and more business schools go under and stop offering MBAs. There's a couple of schools in the Bay Area right now that are basically not taking new admissions. And so the need for education is still there, but it's shifting inside the enterprise, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think the need for education is still there, but quickly being outweighed by the need for experience. And that ultimately is because technology is moving so fast. Let's be real. I mean, let's again, this is not a pile on universities. It is, hey, this is a wake-up call. Fix your system so that you're better preparing and helping young people going into the workforce. So the reality of it is when you sit down at a university and you open that book, a very large percentage of whatever's in that book is outdated because it was printed a couple years ago.
Right.
And when I go buy it, when I buy a new iPhone, they're 2 or 3 iPhones ahead. Like this one's right. I just can't buy it yet. It's out. Like it's done. Yeah. So in that, we have to look at it and say, why do we value something? So this makes me think about, and I'm actually really curious now. So I want to actually go back and start to research when and who commercialized post-secondary education. Because I did this when I started doing research about why do I have to wear a shirt and tie? And I did for most of my working life. I've had 3-piece suits and suits made and the whole bit, right? I've done all that. I was like, why? Well, when you start doing research on where the shirt and tie came from and how it entered the workforce, it actually goes back to the post Great Depression days. And it's how people separated themselves because farmers and laborers were looked at as second class. So it was a way for you to visually see that, hey, I'm better than that person. So It became this thing of it. It was like a way to separate our working class.
Powerful.
And then it just took a thing. And when we think about, like, I'll be honest, and you know this, nobody that wears a shirt and tie every day actually wants to wear a shirt and tie every day. Even if they're the ones implementing the dress code. I remember my first board meeting I ever had with my company, and they show up in shirt and tie, and like I'm in like some jeans and an unbuttoned like regular dress shirt, and like probably some tennis shoes, I think even. And after like that, like we kind of messaged, and then like next quarter rolled around, new board meeting, and they were like, "Oh yeah, well." I'm like, hey, just by the way, we're casual. They were like, hell yeah. Like I'm in on that. I'm like, yeah, but you don't want to wear it. Like you retired. You don't want to come. You don't have to go iron your shirt. You want to do that. So I wonder where this came from. And I think it's probably a really good topic to maybe dive into in another episode, but understanding that of what you mentioned a minute ago was educating our team, right? Educating our staff. And that goes back to what you talked about on the seminar recently with the career counselors. I know it's in your book about saying things like, hey, we have to invest in our team. I want to make you so good you don't want to leave.
That's right. And Shane, when we still need to debrief this webinar that we had with these career counselors. I mean, we had some of the most respected universities on the planet attend. We had community colleges from towns I couldn't even pronounce on there.
Yep.
Equally offering really unique insights. But the thing about the 4-year schools, the feedback that I heard, which affirms some of the concerns I have, which is we're graduating students and they're really underwhelmed by what's in front of them. They're really underwhelmed by the leadership, by the care and the growth and development that they're getting, which is a part. I mean, there's two ways to go with that, which is like, yeah, I'm the first one to want to punch corporate America in the face, but I'm also the first one to say, well, why is it that they're underwhelmed? What expectation did you set up with them when they signed up to go to your school and paid 50, 60, 70, 80,000 a year? That was the experience that they're going to get on the other side, something shiny and rosy? Because maybe you're setting an expectation for them in their 4 years that life's going to be a little easier for them. And guess what? It's not. Why?
No.
Because the lifetime value of the skills we're learning now has got a shorter shelf life than it ever has before. And that doesn't feel good. And that's why we've got job dissatisfaction growing. That's why we've got turnover rising. It's one of the many reasons. But I sort of wonder if our education, and again, I am not going to bash traditional education. I think businesses also don't know what they want, so they can't tell the schools what they should be graduating.
There has to be reform on both ends. There has to be reform.
Right. Yeah. That's right. But I think there's some expectation that people have that if it's not met and they're unsatisfied, it's creating a little bit of churn in the system, which is where it's sort of what my boss used to work for in Canada used to say. It's a self-inflicted wound. Like, we're creating this expectation of something, and work is going to involve so much more real-time learning. I totally agree with you. And I misspoke when I was like, hey, education, like learning through experience, I think is the ultimate learning. Yeah. Right. So maybe we need to rethink this. Maybe we need to diminish our elitism around traditional education. Maybe we need to start shining a light on these incredible number of people who didn't go to college, figured it out. And that pathway is can be incredibly exciting. And it does require a little more hustle and a little bit more edge, but maybe that's what the future skills that are needed should be about.
Well, I think as technology continues to grow and expand the way it is, I think I read something that in the next 7 years, technology is going to grow at a pace that happened since from today back to 1970. So like that period, that 50 years is going to happen over the next 7 years. And when you think back to that, what did we not have 50 years ago? I think color TV was just now coming around. There were no cordless phones. Like, there's these little things that we, don't think about that we've now, those things weren't around. They happened and now they don't exist again because we've grown past that. And that's going to expand the next 7 years. And how do you teach if you're, and I think COVID, to date the episode a little bit, I think COVID there's an opportunity here to accelerate that change because there's a lot of universities that are working remote. There's a lot of universities are here. So there's some real world experience happening that if we educate and share with that, then we can really, we can benefit in a way where we don't lose time, we can gain time.
Right. And the point you made around the acceleration, I mean, I could cause anyone listening to this episode to sort of want to pull off the road and start crying with all the shock and fear tactics that we're reading about. Like 50% of the jobs in 5 years don't even exist today. Like, even if you don't believe that, if you believe 20%, that's still shocking. And the challenge I fear is the human brain isn't ready to consume everything that we're expected to consume. The pace that we're expected to operate in, that's where we're seeing a lot of friction. And all the companies I'm dealing with and all the people you're talking to, we're comparing notes. Employee wellness, stress, anxiety is like blinking red for everybody right now. And so we're going to add more. We're going to add, go faster, learn more things quicker. I mean, the way I try to sort of make sense of this is that the most important skill, and I get asked this all the time, what's the most important skill we should be teaching our kids, Steve? What are you teaching your kids? And I'm saying that the ability to learn and apply faster, like learn and apply, and then appreciate that I'm going to need to learn something new tomorrow, and that's okay. And that's going to make me better. But that, I think, is the biggest asset. And for some people, I know it's really unsatisfying. Really, that's the best you got here, Steve, on, episode whatever. I'm like, yeah, that is the best I got. Learning velocity and being able to learn and appreciate that there is no like, the bucket is full, I've done with my learning now. No, it's going to have to be continual, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's a lot of what we're doing. I'll publicly mention it now because it's kind of getting out on my end, but we're relocating our family to Lisbon, Portugal, and there's a big adjustment there, but it's a continued learning process. We're teaching our kids to be resilient, move to a different country. You know what that's like, right? So, the resilience, this resiliency that comes along with, if you're actually, I think resiliency and continuing education goes hand in hand, because if you're having to be resilient, you're having to constantly learn from things as they come at you and grow from that, right? And the only way to grow is to learn, right? So in a lot of ways, I think that is the case. And if we so let me ask you this, so we'll start to wrap this up. I do want to ask one question, because I think it's important with your background, and I think it's important with the people who listen to this. If you I won't name a company, but let's say you got hired into a 10,000 employee tech company, and you are the VP of talent and human resources. That's what they bring you in for. So essentially your job is to make sure that we continue to staff this place, even as we're bleeding out on the other end. We got to continue bringing talent in. And you look down and you start looking at the job descriptions that they've got posted, and they all say college degree required. I'm curious to know, with your background, what steps you would take, because I think that's valuable, and you might be able to plant some seeds and some nuggets for some people who are in that, who might listen to this and spark something with them, so they can help have some confidence and know kind of what to go forward and say.
So the first place that I would go would be to try to reverse engineer the talent that's performing really well, and say, why the people who are doing really well in this company, where they come from, what experiences do they have, how are our needs going to change in the future, and do we feel confident that that's a real barrier to entry that we think is valuable to us? And let's go look at the pool of labor that is available to us, and that doesn't have a college degree, for example, and how hard would it be for us to plug and play in different areas so that our time to hire, our time to productivity is diminished, so that we can create more value? Because isn't that why we're here? We're not here to hire people from college. We're here to create value. And if we can, and then I would say, by the way, what every employee is starting to realize in this world of fast change is that the companies that offer the most growth, as you said earlier, the companies that can help you be more resilient for the future and possibly allow you to leave, are the ones people might want to stay at longer. So it is incumbent upon us, in a world where we don't really know what skills we need in the future, that we're going to have to see bigger than this, care about people more than just when they work for us, for the entirety of their career. And that's going to help our country. It's going to help our town. That's going to help families. Like, that's a bigger thing. And just I would try to take the eye off of the degree. And it's the people that have the degree, that are stuck on the degree, that fought for that may have some resistance, right? They always say, who's the hardest time changing in a company? The people that built what you're trying to change. Okay, so let's try to pull that apart. And then it would hold up at company after company after company that's blown that up and doing just fine, maybe even better, right? So it's like, hey, we can do this. We can swim in the pool. I know you're a little bit nervous, because and a lot of people feel like it's a pedigree that's necessary for us to be respected. There's some sort of professionalism that is accompanied by a college degree. And I mean, we both know that's not true. I mean, it's not even worth having that conversation. Sure. We know it's not needed, but I appreciate you asking that question, because that's the blink that everyone has. How do we make that jump?
Let me ask you this. One of the things you mentioned that you hear a lot when you talk to companies is it's hard to find good people, right? It's hard to find good people. If you're cutting off the talent pool that you can actually search from, it's really hard, right? So does it not give you a competitive advantage if you take away that? Now we have exponentially more people to reach out to who just didn't take the college degree or didn't finish, or these different things. Like, now we have more people to vet and potentially bring in. There's a bigger selection of people out there. And to me, that sounds like a competitive advantage in a lot of ways.
It is competitive advantage. And the challenge is, we've got a two-sided marketplace here. The people that don't have the degree have to feel more confident that they have a chance to find interesting jobs that are high paying, that can support their families, and the companies need to realize like we can elevate our game here, and to your point, access greater pools of talent with maybe not as big a leap as we thought we might have to.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to kind of wrap it up. It's one of those subjects where I think we can kind of get to the meat of it, and we don't want to beat a dead horse, as we say here in the South. So, my stance is on it. I think it's ridiculous. I think if you're the best person for the job, just like male, female, race, religion, whatever it is, if you're the best person for the job and make us successful, I don't care if you've never spent a day doing the job. I just, if you're the best person for the job, that's what I want. So that's my stance, and kind of where I stand on it. So
Right. And those of you listening, love to hear your thoughts on this one. Love to have you like the podcast, share it with your friends. We got so many more things we could talk about, but appreciate your listening in here. It's the Work Week After Hours. I'm Steve Cadigan with
Shane Howard.
All right. That's a wrap.
Cheers.